A knock breaks the silence of the night. Lee Seok-won puts down his book. He's not expecting guests at this hour. His expression turns concentrated. He approaches the door and peers through the peephole. A woman stands at the door. Behind her lies the deep night. She holds a sleeping girl tightly in her arms. The child is wrapped in a blanket. The woman looks tired. Her dark hair is pulled back into heavy dreadlocks. She is wearing a light dress, although it is cold outside. Seok-won opens the door. He doesn't come out, but stands in the doorway. The cold air touches his face. The woman looks at him. She sees a young man, his serious eyes, and a thin scar. She takes a step forward. "Can you hide me and my daughter for the night?" Her voice is quiet but clear. Seok-won is silent. His gaze drifts past her shoulder again, into the darkness. He searches for movement, for other people. No one. "Please," she says, and all her weariness and despair are heard in that one word. "Just for one night." The girl in her arms moves in her sleep and coughs quietly. Seok-won looks at the child, then back at the woman. He steps away from the door. "Come in," he says in a low, even voice. The woman, Amina, quickly steps inside, as if afraid the door will close. The girl, Abi, doesn't wake up. The hallway is clean and almost empty. Just a shoe rack and a coat rack. It smells of wood and cleanliness. Seok-won locks the door. The clicking sound seems very loud. He turns to face them. "That's the guest room," he says, nodding toward the hallway. No smile, no extra words. He leads them down a short corridor and opens a door. Inside is a small room with a bed, a nightstand, and a chair. Everything is very simple. Amina nods, thanking him with her eyes. She walks inside and carefully lays Abby down on the bed. The girl frowns in her sleep, but then settles into a comfortable position. Seok-won stands in the doorway. He watches Amina adjust the blanket. She does it automatically, her hands shaking from fatigue or the cold. "The restroom has everything you need," he says, pointing to another door in the hallway. "Don't make noise. Don't go near the windows." He says this not as a threat, but as a clear instruction. Then he turns and walks to the far end of the house. His footsteps are silent. Amina stands in the middle of the room, listening to the silence. She breathes deeply for the first time in hours. Then she sits on the edge of the bed next to her daughter and closes her eyes. 20 minutes pass. The house is completely quiet. Amina opens her eyes. She stands carefully so as not to wake Abby and leaves the room. She goes into the kitchen. It's a spacious room with a large table. Everything sparkles with cleanliness, like a museum. It seems like cooking rarely happens here. Amina opens the refrigerator. Inside are a few simple items: rice, eggs, vegetables, a pack of tofu. She scans the shelves, finding butter and soy sauce. She decides not to ask permission. Her hands know what to do. She puts water on the stove for the rice. Quickly and deftly cuts onions and carrots into thin strips. From the outside, it seems like this kitchen has always been hers. She moves confidently, without unnecessary movements. The clatter of a knife and the sizzle of butter in a frying pan are the first ordinary sounds in this silent house. Seok-won appears in the doorway. He doesn't say a word, leans against the doorframe, and watches. His face is expressionless. He simply watches this unfamiliar woman prepare food in his home. Amina feels his gaze but doesn't turn around. She cracks eggs into a bowl and beats them with a fork. Then she pours them into the frying pan with the vegetables. A familiar, cozy supply of fried food emerges. "I thought you might be hungry," she finally says, still staring at the frying pan. "And I don't want to be a burden." Seok-won is silent. Then he steps away from the door, picks up 2 plain white saucers from the table, and places them next to the stove. That's his only response. Amina puts fluffy rice on plates and tops them with the egg and vegetable mixture. She places one plate on the table in front of an empty chair. The second one is opposite. She sits down and waits. A minute later, Seok-won comes over and sits across from her. They begin eating, listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall. No one says thank you. No one says anything at all. But the silence between them is different now. Not hostile, just heavy, like a full stomach after a long day. Seok-won eats slowly. His gaze occasionally shifts from his plate to Amina. He sees how confidently she holds her chopsticks, how carefully she clears her plate from the table and places the kettle on the stove. She finds green tea in a simple tin on the shelf. She brews it in a small pot that looks like it's never been used before. Her movements are calm, masterful. Seok-won finishes his meal. He stands up and takes his plate to the sink, but Amina is already there. She silently takes the plate from his hands. Their fingers don't touch. He steps back and leans against the counter again, watching. She's washing the dishes. The water is making a noise. Steam from the kettle fogs the window. In a house where usually only footsteps or the ticking of a clock are heard, these ordinary, everyday sounds now exist. They don't seem foreign. Amina wipes her hands. She pours tea into 2 cups. She places one in front of Seokwan. He watches the hot steam rising from the dark liquid. He doesn't drink tea in the evenings, but now he slowly takes the cup, feeling its warmth. "You're very young to be the mistress of such a house," Amina says. She doesn't look at him, but looks into her teacup. Seokwan doesn't answer. He lifts the cup to his lips and takes a small sip. The tea is bitter and strong. "Thank you for the food," he says finally, his voice still even. Amina nods. She drinks her tea. Then she puts the cup down on the table. Her shoulders slump slightly, as if she's shedding a heavy burden. "We're running from the same man," she says quietly, looking straight at him now. "He thinks he owns us. Me and Abby." Seokwan's expression doesn't change. He waits. "It's not the police," she quickly adds, as if reading his mind. "He's a businessman. He has connections. Money. He found us in the last city. We left on a bus, but he knows my brother. Maybe my brother told him something." She falls silent, clutching her cup so tightly that her fingers turn white. "Will he cause harm?" Seokwan asks, his question almost matter-of-factly. "He'll hurt him to take Abby," Amina corrects, a hard, cold fire flashing in her eyes. "Only me if I get in the way." Seokwan stares at the fire for a few seconds. Then he looks away. He takes another sip of tea. "One night," he says, repeating her own words. "One night," she agrees. "We'll leave in the morning." The tea is drunk. Amina washes the cups. Seokwan watches as she places them on the drying rack. Then he turns and walks deeper into the house. He enters the room that serves as his office. There's a large table, 2 chairs, and a shelf with several books. On the wall is a large, detailed map of the city. He sits down at the table and picks up a simple, unmarked cell phone, dials a number from memory. The call ends after the first ring. "Chong-min," Seokwan says quietly, almost in a whisper. He listens for a couple of seconds. "Yes, they're here. A woman and a girl. Amina B.A. Check everything you can find. Especially look for connections to business. Someone who might be stalking a woman and child. Yes, quiet. And see if there's been any activity in the area in the last few hours." He remains silent, listening to the answer. "No," he says after a moment. His voice doesn't shake. "Not yet, but check." He hangs up. He sits motionless in the quiet of the office. A soft sound comes from the kitchen. Amina, probably wiping down the table. Then her footsteps in the hallway. The click of the door to the guest room. Seokwan sits motionless for another minute. Then he stands up and walks over to the map on the wall. His fingers trace the line of one of the streets near his house. His face is expressionless. It's simply focused. Abby wakes up to a strange sound. Dull, metallic, like a large castle falling somewhere far away. She lies motionless, her eyes wide open in the darkness. The room is unfamiliar. It smells clean and foreign, not her mother's perfume or their old house. She turns her head. Her mother is sleeping next to her. Amina is breathing deeply and evenly, but even in sleep, her hand rests on Abby like a light anchor. Abby listens. The house isn't entirely quiet. Somewhere, a floorboard creaks, as if someone is walking very carefully. Then another sound, a soft rustling sound, like paper being placed on a table. She's afraid to move. There were sounds in their old apartment at night, too, but these are different. Here, the sounds are clear, lonely, then silence. A long silence, in which the only sound is her mother's breathing. Then a new sound, a muffled growl. Low, not loud at all. A dog? They'd never had a dog. Abby snuggles closer to Amina. Mom stirs, hugging her in her sleep, but doesn't wake up. Abby looks at the ceiling. She sees a strip of light coming from under the door. The light doesn't flicker. It's steady and calm. Someone is awake. Someone is awake in this strange, quiet house. She closes her eyes and tries to breathe as evenly as her mother. She counts silently. 1, 2, 3. At 15, she hears that metallic sound again. Closer, then footsteps. Firm, confident. They pass their door and move away. The footsteps belong to a man. The owner of the house. The man with the scar. Abby remembers his face as they walked inside. It wasn't angry. It was empty, like a clean plate. She lies there and listens as the footsteps fade away. Then there's silence. Real silence. And in that silence, Abby finally falls asleep again. Early morning light filters through the kitchen curtains. Amina is already up. She finds eggs in the fridge again and chops up the remaining vegetables. This time, she's making an omelet. Her movements are just as confident. Abby appears in the hallway. She's wearing the same dress as yesterday, rubbing her eyes. Her hair is disheveled. She silently approaches her mother and snuggles into her leg. Amina puts her hand on her head without stopping cooking. Seokwan stands in the doorway. He's already dressed, dark pants, a simple gray sweater. His hair is wet, as if he'd just washed his face. He watches Abby stare at the frying pan. "Can I help you?" the girl asks quietly. Amina glances quickly at Seokwan, as if asking permission. He doesn't move. Then she takes another small bowl from the shelf. "You can whisk this," she says, placing a bowl with 2 eggs in front of Abby and handing her a fork. "Gently." Abby picks up her fork gravely. She stands on tiptoe to get a better view of the bowl and begins to stir carefully. The eggs are wobbly, bits of shell floating around. But her face is focused. Seokwan watches the scene. His gaze falls on the girl's small, diligent hands. On the way, her tongue sticks out slightly from the effort. Something flickers in his usually empty eyes. Not a smile, just a subtle shift, as if he's seeing something rare and incomprehensible. He's never seen a child doing anything in his kitchen before. Seokwan's usual place. Seokwan slowly approaches and sits down. He nods to Abby. The girl hides her eyes behind her mother's shoulder, then peeks out again. "Thanks for breakfast," Seokwan says, his voice a little quieter than usual. Breakfast is coming to an end. Amina collects the plates. She looks out the window at the brightening sky. "We'll get ready in half an hour," she says, more to herself than to Seokwan. "And then we'll leave. Thank you for the night." Seokwan pushes his chair back. He, too, looks out the window, but his gaze sharpens, becomes keen, observant. "You're not leaving today," he says evenly. Amina freezes with the plate in her hands. She slowly turns to face him. "I saw activity overnight," he continues, not looking at her. "And early this morning, there was a car parked on the next street that didn't belong there. 2 men were circling the block. They didn't look like police. They looked like they were searching." He finally looks at her. "If they're still in the area, you'll walk out of my house and walk right into their presence. Your daughter will be spotted. You need another day, so they'll think you're already far away and leave." Amina silently lowers the plate into the sink. She grips the edge of the countertop. You can see her thoughts working. Fear, relief at the delay, new fear at being so close. "One more day," she repeats quietly. "One more day," Seokwan confirms. "And don't go near the windows. Neither you nor the girl. Stay away from the glass." Abby looks from her mother to Seokwan. She doesn't understand all the words, but she understands the tone. She quiets down. The door to the hallway suddenly opens without knocking. A man enters. This is Chang Min. He's a little older than Seokwan, stocky, with short hair and alert, quick eyes. He's dressed in a simple dark jacket and pants. He walks inside, as if he were at home, and immediately stops. His gaze falls on the kitchen, on Amina at the sink, on Abby, who presses herself against her mother's leg, seeing the stranger, on Seokwan, sitting at the table. A tense silence fills the air. Changmin says nothing. He simply stares. His face expresses neither surprise nor anger. It simply becomes stony. "The office," Seokwan says. "And see," standing up. His voice is different now, flat, lacking the nuance it had a moment ago. Changmin takes one last appraising look at the women and turns, walking into the hallway. Seokwan follows him. Amina wipes her hands. She takes Abby's hand and quietly says, "Let's go to our room." She leads her daughter out of the kitchen, feeling the stranger's heavy gaze on her back, even after the door to the study closes. Seokwan's office is simple. A large table, chairs, a map. Changmin doesn't sit. He stands in the middle of the room facing Seokwan. "Who are they?" is his first question, short as a punch. Seokwan replies, walking around the table and sitting down in his chair. He doesn't offer Changmin a seat. "For one night, they're having breakfast in your kitchen. The child is helping set the table." Changmin's voice was filled with cold disbelief. "What's going on, Seokwan?" "I gave them a place to stay overnight. In the morning, I saw suspicious people in the area. They're staying another day until they leave." Changmin makes a short, dry sound like a laugh, but there is no humor in it. "Do you believe this story, a woman with a child? They're like something out of a bad movie. Who are they really? Maybe they're with the police? Or from the competition? They sent a weak link to get you to lower your guard." Seokwan looks at him without blinking. "I already gave you a task. Check them." What did you find? Nothing yet. No name has surfaced. But that doesn't mean anything. A good cover story is prepared in advance. The child doesn't lie, Chongmin, Seokwan says quietly. The child is being used. Chongmin steps forward, placing his palms on the table. It's classic. You opened the door to your home. Your home. Now there are strangers here. They see, they hear. They are a vulnerability. They will bring problems. Big problems. Seokwan leans back in his chair, his face unreadable. The decision has been made. They're staying until tomorrow. Use your resources. Find information on the businessman stalking the woman. That's your job. And mine is to keep an eye on what's going on under my roof. Chongmin looks at him with a long, hard gaze. He sees that Seokwan won't change his mind. He steps away from the table, his face still stony. Whatever you say, boss, he says, and the word doesn't ring with respect, but with bitter irony. But when trouble starts, remember what I warned you about. He turns and walks out of the office, abruptly closing the door behind him. Seokwan sits alone in silence. He looks at the map on the wall, but doesn't see it. He hears Abby's quiet laughter from the back room. And then he gets up again to look out the window at the now empty street. The day drags on. Amina tries to be helpful. She dusts the living room, though there's hardly any dust. She folds the clothes Seokwan left on a chair in the hallway. She moves quietly, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace of the house. Abby is bored. She whispered to her mother, and Amina, after a moment's hesitation, allowed her to go out into the small courtyard garden. It's a tiny courtyard behind a glass door in the living room, surrounded by a high fence. There are a few bushes, flagstones, and a small tree. Don't go near the fence. Play here where I can see you, Amina said, remaining by the glass door. Abby nodded. She stepped carefully over the stones. The sun was shining, but the courtyard was cool. She crouched down, studying an ant crawling along a crack between the tiles. Then her gaze falls on something shiny under one of the bushes. She glances back at her mother. Amina is looking out the kitchen window, washing something. Abby crawls closer. It's a small metal plaque, rectangular, the size of her palm. It's dark, but the edges gleam in the sun. Strange symbols are etched into it. They're not letters Abby recognizes. They're angular lines, circles with dots inside, intertwined lines. The plaque is cold and heavy. Abby looks around again. Mom is still in the kitchen. She quickly picks up the sign. It's smooth on one side and rough on the other with symbols. The girl doesn't know what it is, but it looks like a secret, like treasure. She tucks the sign into the pocket of her dress. She feels its coldness through the fabric. Then she stands and pretends to simply walk on the tiles. A minute later, she returns to the house. What were you doing? Amina asks, wiping her hands. Looking for bugs, Abby says honestly. She doesn't mention the sign. That's her secret. Seokwan spends almost the entire day in his office. He speaks on the phone in a quiet, even voice. Occasionally, he goes out to check the windows, peering out through the cracks in the blinds. His expression is always focused. Amina prepares lunch, simple soup and rice. They eat almost in silence. Abby quietly tells her mother about the ant she saw in the garden. Seokwan listens without interfering. After lunch, he goes back to his office. He sits down at his desk and picks up a different phone, not the one he used this morning. An unread message appears on the screen. He opens it. A message from Chang Min. Short, no extra words. Found it. The man she fears. Kim Jae-dok, import-export. Connections with our old friends from the port. Very serious. His people are actively inquiring about a woman with a child 3 districts away, offering money, big ones. Moving systematically, faster than I thought. We'll be here by evening. We need to talk. Seokwan places his phone on the table. He sits perfectly still. His gaze rests on the map on the wall. He looks at the port area, then mentally draws a line to his home. He knows the name Kim Jae-dok. This isn't just a rich man with a bad character. It's a structure, resources. And if his people are already so close and acting so openly, it means they're confident in their power. Or very desperate. One night, then another day. It's not enough anymore. If they leave this house tomorrow, they'll be found within an hour. The girl will be taken. The woman. He doesn't finish the thought. He gets up and goes to the office window. Through a narrow slit, a fragment of the street is visible. Empty. Silence. But now this silence seems deceptive. Anything could be hiding there. Evening. Amna is washing the dishes after dinner. Abby is drawing with a pencil on the back of an old newspaper she found. Seokwan comes out of the office. He stops at the kitchen door. Amina, he says. She turns around, wiping her hands. She sees his face. It hasn't changed, but there's a certain finality to his posture. He glances at Abby. Amina understands. Abby, dear, take the drawing to our room and show it to me in a minute. The girl obediently gathers up her sheet of paper and leaves, casting a quick glance at Seokwon. When they're alone, Seokwon speaks directly. His voice is quiet, but each word falls as clearly as a stone. The people who are looking for you. I found out who's leading them. His name is Kim Jae-dok. Amina turns pale. Her hand instinctively grabs the edge of the sink. She knows that name. It means everything she's been running from. His people are nearby. They're offering big money for information. They're moving fast. If you leave here tomorrow, they'll find you. Fast. Amina nods silently. She felt it herself, the tightening noose, the fear that didn't go away even in the safety of this house. So you're staying here, not for a day, for a week. At least. He pauses briefly, looking at her, gauging her reaction. In that time, the situation could change. He might decide you've left town, or I'll have time to arrange your safe departure. Organize? Amina asks again. There's no hope in her voice, only caution. Ensure that you are taken away undetected. To another place, farther away. Amina stares at him for a long moment. She tries to read his face, but it's closed. She thinks of duty, of the trap, of being completely at his mercy. But she also thinks of Abby, sleeping in the next room. Okay, she finally says, her voice barely audible. A week. The rules are the same, says Seokwon. Windows. Silence. Exit only to the supervised courtyard. You're part of my house now. Temporary, but part nonetheless. This will keep you safe. And me safe. He turns to leave, but stops. And Amina, Chang-min, the man who was here this morning, he'll be coming. He doesn't trust you. Be prepared. Don't ask him any questions. And don't say anything unnecessary. He leaves. Amina stands by the sink, looking at the wet, water-wrinkled skin on her fingers. A week. A whole week in this quiet, strange house, with a man whose past is written on his neck and in his cold eyes. She feels the heavy metal weight of responsibility and fear sinking even deeper onto her shoulders. But beneath it, there's a faint, faint ray. A week of safety for Abby. That's all that matters for now. A few minutes later, Abby emerges from the room. Mom, are we leaving tomorrow? She asks. No, honey, we're staying here a little while longer. We're safe here. Abby nods. Her hand instinctively touches her pocket, where the cold metal nameplate lies. The next morning, Amina wakes up with a firm decision. A week is a long time. She can't just sit and wait, feeling like a helpless burden. After breakfast, when Seokwon is about to leave for his office, she stops him. I need to do something, she says bluntly. She stands before him, her back straight, her eyes hard. I can't just be a guest hiding. Let me run the household. Cook, clean, do the laundry. Whatever. Seokwon looks at her, his face expressionless. That's not necessary, he says. You have shelter here. That's enough. For you, maybe, Amina insists, but not for me. Sitting around, it makes me feel trapped, even in a safe place. Work will help me think, will help me stay strong for Abby. She looks at him unwaveringly. She's not asking, she's declaring. It's a question of her dignity. Seokwon silently assesses her. He sees more than just gratitude or submissiveness. He sees a need for control, even over something as small as the cleanliness of his home. Okay, he finally says. The towels and bed linens are in the closet in the hallway. The vacuum cleaner is in the pantry. I'll do the food shopping. Cook whatever you need. He pauses. But don't touch the office, and the room at the end of the corridor on the left. Everything else is at your disposal. Amina's nod is brief. Thank you. As soon as he leaves, she acts. She finds Abby some crayons and paper. They seem to appear on the living room table as if by magic. Then she starts in the kitchen. She wipes down every shelf, scrubs the inside of the refrigerator, and scrubs the stove until it shines. The work is hard, monotonous, but she immerses herself in it. The sound of running water, the squeak of a rag, the smell of cleaning solution. This is her ritual, her way of regaining a bit of normalcy. Abby sometimes helps by dusting the low shelves. Most of the time, she draws. She drew a house, a large tree, and 2 small figures. Then, after some thought, she added a third, slightly larger one with a scar on its face. Chang-min arrives after lunch. His face is still stony. He walks straight into the office, not glancing at the kitchen, where Amina is ironing Seokwon's clothes, simple dark shirts and trousers. The office door closes. Chang-min doesn't sit down. A week, Seokwon? Seriously? You told them they're living here now? Seokwan answers calmly. Kim Jae-dok isn't someone you can just sit back and wait for. They need time. I need time to consider their conclusion. Or did you feel sorry for them? Changmin says. His voice is sharp. A woman cooks. A child draws. A cozy picture. Are you forgetting who you are? What's at stake? Seokwan slowly looks up at his comrade. I don't forget anything, Changmin. But I also remember something else. He leans back in his chair. His gaze becomes distant, as if looking somewhere inside himself. When I was a little older than this girl, my mother was running away from a man who thought we owed him something, not money, something else. We hid for 3 days in an empty warehouse. A single old tarp covered us. I remember her holding me close, her hand shaking, but she whispered that everything would be okay, that we just had to keep quiet. He pauses. The office is quiet. They found us. Not the man, but his subordinates. They were rude. The mother put herself in front of me. She didn't ask for anything. She simply said, he's just a child. They looked at us, at the tarp, at her face, and left. Just left. Maybe they had children too. I don't know. Seokwan looks directly at Changmin. That man later got what he deserved, from other people. But this lesson, a lesson about how sometimes, even in the darkest night, there can be a glimmer, not of what's called pity, of order, of basic human order. I survived thanks to that glimmer in strangers. Now I have the opportunity to be that glimmer. This isn't weakness, Changmin. It's duty, of a different kind. Changmin listens without interrupting. His tense posture relaxes slightly. He doesn't agree, but he understands. At least he sees the motive now. Duty is dangerous, he says quietly. It blinds. You provide me with clear vision, Seokwan replies. Keep an eye on Kim Jae-dok. Find out his plans. That's your job. And mine is to decide what happens here. Changmin sighs heavily and finally sits down in the chair. As you say. But I'll keep an eye on them. Both of them. That evening, Amina prepares dinner. A fragrant and filling stew with vegetables. Seokwan sits in the kitchen, looking through some papers. But his attention is distracted. He listens to the sounds of cooking and watches Abby help set the table, setting out spoons and napkins. An almost peaceful silence reigns during the meal. After dinner, Abby goes into the guest room to look at a picture book. Amina makes tea. She seems calmer than she had during the day, perhaps tired from work. Kim Jae-dok, she begins, not looking at Seokwan. I worked for him. Not directly. Through an agency. I was a housekeeper at his country house. A good job. He was almost never there. She slowly stirs the sugar in her cup. He saw me when he came over once with guests. Then he started coming more often, always alone. At first, he just talked. Then, he started giving gifts, clothes, jewelry. I refused, said I couldn't accept them. He insisted. Then one day, he said he liked me, that he didn't have a family, that he could give me and Abby everything. A home, security, a future. She takes a sip of tea, her hand shaking slightly. I said no, politely. I said I appreciated the work, but I had my own life. He wouldn't take no for an answer. For people like him, no is a personal insult, a mistake that needs to be corrected. He started pressuring me, first through work. They cut my hours. Then they said I was not suitable. Then he came himself, said he could give me everything back, that I should be reasonable, that for a woman like me, this was an opportunity. Amina falls silent, staring into the dark tea. Then he started talking about Abby, that she needed a father, that he could give her the best education, that he'd already found a good boarding school for her, so she could grow in the right environment, separate from me. There's a steeliness in her voice. That night I packed 2 bags, the bare essentials, and we left on the first bus, then another, then a third. He found us a month later. His men broke into our rented room. We weren't home. We'd gone to the store. We saw them from the pharmacy window across the street. After that, we just ran, non-stop. She finally looks up at Seokwan. He won't stop. For him, we're more than just a woman and a child anymore. We're his property, who dared to escape. And he'll get her back, especially Abby. Because she's young, she can be re-educated. And I'm no longer needed, except as an example to others. Seokwan listened without interrupting. His face remained impassive, but a quick, cold spark flickered in his eyes as she spoke of Abby's boarding school. I understand now, he said quietly. This isn't just stalking. It's an obsession. People like that are the most dangerous. They know no bounds. Amina nods, lowering her head. She feels a little better about what she's told, but also more afraid, because now someone else knows the full depth of their misfortune. It's late evening. The house is plunged in silence. Amina can't sleep. She goes into the kitchen for a glass of water. She doesn't turn on the overhead light, only the small lamp above the stove. She goes to the window above the sink, which faces the street, and pulls back the thick curtain just a centimeter to look out. The street is lit by a few streetlights, with pockets of deep darkness between them. And then she sees him. In the shade of a tall tree, directly across the narrow street from the house, stands a man. He doesn't move. He just stares. Directly at the house. The lantern light doesn't reach his face, but the outline of his figure, the broad shoulders, the posture, the way he stands. She recognizes him immediately. It's one of Kim Jae-dok's men, the same one who broke into their old room. His name is Park. He's always at Kim's side, his shadow and right-hand man. An icy wave of fear rolls down Amina's spine. She freezes, her fingers digging into the fabric of the curtain. He's here. They've found them. He's just standing there, watching, like a predator who's already cornered its prey and isn't in any hurry. She steps back from the window, stumbling in the darkness. Her heart is pounding so loudly she thinks she can hear it throughout the house. She must warn Seokwon, but her legs won't obey her. She stands in the middle of the dark kitchen, shaking all over. Seokwon appears from the darkness of the hallway. He's already dressed, dark pants and a sweater. He's awake. He looks at her pale face, distorted with fear, and at the way she looks at the window. He doesn't ask a word. He simply walks quickly to the window, pulls back the curtain just enough to take a look for himself. His gaze focuses on the figure under the tree. He sees her. Seokwon's face doesn't change. It just becomes very, very cold. He steps away from the window and turns to Amina. "Go to Abby's room, close the door. Don't come out until I tell you." His voice is quiet, but it's so powerful that Amina obeys immediately. She practically runs into the guest room, quietly closes the door, and presses her back against it, listening. She hears Seokwon heading to the end of the hallway, into that forbidden room. She hears the door open, then a low, disgruntled growl. A moment later, the soft patter of heavy paws on the floor. "Dogs." Seokwon's muffled voice is heard on the phone. Just a few words, then the sound of the front door opening. Amina carefully creeps up to the room's window, which overlooks the courtyard. She sees two large, dark dogs emerge from the side door of the house. They resemble mastiffs, powerful and silent. Behind them emerge Seokwon and two men she hasn't seen before. All are dressed in dark clothes and move silently. Seokwon makes a brief gesture with his hand. The dogs, as if on cue, rush forward, not toward the gate, but toward the blank part of the fence leading to the front yard. The next moment, the humans disappear into the darkness behind them. Amina freezes, pressing her hand to her mouth. She stares into the darkness of the courtyard, but sees and hears nothing else. The silence outside is absolute. It feels like an eternity has passed. Maybe 5 minutes passed, maybe 10. Then Amina heard the quiet sound of the front door opening and closing. Footsteps in the hallway. The muffled growling of dogs being led away somewhere. Then a knock on her door. Quiet but firm. "Amina, come out!" She opens the door. Seokwon is standing in the hallway. He's alone. There's no sign of tension or effort on him. He looks like he's just gone out to check his mail. "He's gone?" Amina breathes. "He won't show up again," Seokwon says. His voice is calm and even, as always. But there's a new edge to it now. Not a threat, but a statement of fact. A certainty as solid as granite. A promise that can't be broken. He looks straight at her. The man who stood under the tree received a very clear signal. A signal that this house is protected. That those inside are untouchable. He will pass this signal on to his boss. And Kim Jae-dok now has a choice. Accept the new rules of the game, or face consequences that go beyond simply returning his property. He pauses briefly. "You're safe. Abby's safe. Today and the next few days. This is my business now. Do you understand?" Amina looks at him. She sees more than just a man who has given her shelter. She sees a force that has suddenly sided with her, not out of pity, but because he has decided so. It's both terrifying and incredibly relieving. She nods slowly, unable to speak. "Okay," says Seokwon. "Sleep well. No one will be standing under our windows anymore." He turns and goes back to his room. Amina closes the door and leans her back against it. The room is quiet. Abby is asleep, covered with a blanket. The fear that had been clenching her throat by the window slowly recedes, replaced by a deep, trembling weariness and a strange feeling of security. Heavy, dearly bought, but real. She walks to the bed, lies down next to her daughter, and hugs her. For the first time in weeks, her mind isn't racing with plans for tomorrow. Tomorrow she'll just keep cleaning this house, cooking, and waiting. Because now, behind these walls, there's someone who said no to the one who was stalking her, and his no is much louder. The next morning after breakfast, Seokwon doesn't immediately go to his study. He brings from the living room a small wooden board marked with a grid of lines and 2 round dark wood boxes. He places the board on the kitchen table. Abby watches with interest. "What is this?" she asks. "Paduk," says Seokwon. He opens the boxes. One contains smooth black stones, the other white ones. They are cool and heavy to the touch. "Is it a game?" Abby clarifies. "Yes, a game of strategy. You learn to look ahead, to defend your territory." Amina watches from the sidelines, continuing to wash the dishes. She watches as Seokwon arranges a few stones on the board, explaining the most basic rules. Surround, capture, freedom. Abby listens, resting her cheek on her hand, her brows knitted in concentration. "Let's try," Seokwon says, putting the stones away. He hands Abby the black stones. The girl carefully takes one and, after a moment's thought, places it in the center of the board. Seokwon, almost without looking, places his white stone next to it. They make a few more moves. Abby doesn't say a word. She just looks at the board. Her movements are slow, deliberate. She doesn't just place a stone anywhere. She looks at where Seokwon placed it, and her next move is often close, but with a small, clever shift. Seokwon watches her more and more closely. His own moves become slower. He begins to give her more time. One day when Abby places a stone, blocking one of his simple expansions, he nods almost imperceptibly. "Okay," he says quietly, mostly to himself. They play for about 20 minutes. The board gradually fills up. Abby has no chance against him, that's obvious. But she doesn't give up, doesn't get distracted. She loses a group of stones, frowns, but immediately places the next stone in a different spot, as if she's learned her lesson. At the end, Seokwon shows her why her group died. He traces the empty intersections with his finger. There was no breath here. "You forgot to leave 2 eyes." Abby watches closely and nods. "2 eyes," she repeats, as if memorizing a spell. "That's enough for today," Seokwon says, and starts collecting stones. "Can we play again tomorrow?" Abby asks quickly. Seokwon looks at her expectant face. "If you want." "Yes." He takes the board away. Amina goes to the table to wipe it. "You played well," she tells her daughter. "It's hard," Abby replies, "but interesting. He doesn't get mad when I lose." Amina strokes her head. She saw the way Seokwon looked at Abby. There was something new in his gaze. Not sternness or emptiness, respect. Changmin arrives late in the evening. His face is grim. He walks into the office without even glancing at the kitchen. Amina feels a chill down her spine. She finishes ironing and quietly leaves with Abby for their room, as if sensing the approaching storm. In his office, Changmin doesn't stand on ceremony. He places a thin folder in front of Seokwon. "Here, a full background check, not through the usual channels, through old deep ones." Seokwon opens the folder. There are several printed pages, a photo of Amina, apparently taken a long time ago, and some extracts. "Kim Jae-duk is just the tip of the iceberg," Changmin says, pointing to one of the lines. "His main import partner at the port, Kang Hyuk." The atmosphere in the room changes at the sound of that name. Kang Hyuk is a name Seokwon knows very well. He's not just a rival. He's a man with whose organization they've been locked in a long-running, quiet, and very serious conflict for influence in the port area. There have been skirmishes. There have been casualties on both sides. The truce is as fragile as ice in spring. "So?" Seokwon asks calmly, though his mind has already begun to calculate the connections. "What?" Changmin raises his voice. "Your guest, whom you're so protective of, worked for the house financed by Kang Hyuk. She's not just a runaway maid. She's a potential pawn in a game against us. Who knows what she really heard in that house? Who knows if Kang himself sent her to end up at your door?" Seokwon slowly flips through the pages. He sees confirmation. Kim Jae-duk's companies are indeed receiving large investments through entities linked to Kang Hyuk. "She knows nothing about these connections," Seokwon says, mostly to himself. "Are you sure?" Changmin asks sarcastically. "Or do you want to believe that? She could have known everything. She could have been waiting for the right moment to see or hear something here. In your house!" Seokwon closes the folder and pushes it away. He looks up at Chang Min. His gaze is cold and direct. Your assumption is unfounded. Her fear was real. Her story is being verified. She was running from Kim Jae-dok, not to me with a mission. One doesn't exclude the other, Chang Min nearly shouts, losing his usual restraint. They could have used her without even asking. They forced her out of her home, knowing she would run to seek refuge with someone powerful in the area. And she came to you. This is too convenient, Seokwan. So you think Kang Hyuk orchestrated Kim Jae-dok's advances toward her? Figured out she'd come running to me? That's paranoia, Chang Min. That's caution, Chang Min corrects. Caution you suddenly throw out because of a woman and child you don't know. He takes a step forward, bracing his hands on the table. They're a risk, pure and simple. Even if she's not a spy, the very fact that she's here connects us to Kim Jae-dok, and through him to Kang Hyuk. If that's revealed, it will be perceived as a challenge, as weakness. We're under attack on all fronts. You're jeopardizing everything we've built over the years because of some debt? Seokwan slowly rises to his feet. His movements are smooth, but there's a steely tension to them. The decision has been made. They're staying. I won't give them up because of your guesses. These aren't guesses. These are facts. Changmin slams his fist on the table. And if you refuse to see the risk, then perhaps you're not the one making these decisions. After these words, heavy, icy silence falls in the office. These words have crossed the line. Seokwan looks at Changming, and for the first time in years, his eyes flash something dangerous, not just cold, something that made Changming take a half step back, but he didn't look away. Say that again, Seokwan says quietly. Changmin is silent, his jaw clenched. He doesn't repeat himself, but he doesn't apologize either. Tell you what, Seokwan says, his voice quiet and clear, like a blade on ice. You will continue to monitor Kang Hyuk and Kim Jae-dok. That's your job. And what happens in this house is my business. If you don't like the way I'm running things, you know where the door is. But while you're here, you follow my orders. And my orders are to keep the people in this house safe. Understood? Changmin breathes heavily for a few seconds, his chest heaving. He sees that Seokwan is unwavering. He sees the wall he just tried to break through and crashed into. Got it, he finally croaks. There's no resignation in his voice. There's bitterness and lingering mistrust. He turns sharply and leaves the office, slamming the door so hard that the glass on the shelves rattles. Seokwan stands alone in the middle of the room. He stares at the closed door. The coldness that now lies between him and his oldest comrade is palpable, like a physical chill. He walks to the window and looks out onto the empty garden. Changmin's words echo in his head. A pawn in the game. Too convenient. He pushes away doubt. He's made his decision, and now he must be prepared for whatever may follow, not only from external enemies, but also from the wound that has just opened within his own home. The next day, tension permeates the house. Changmin doesn't come. Seokwan is silent, his face a mask of complete detachment. He spends most of his time in his office, talking on the phone in a low, inaudible voice. Amina, trying not to disturb, decides to dust the living room adjacent to the study. The door to the study is closed, but not completely. She bends down to dust the bottom shelf of the bookcase when Seokwan's clear, harsh voice comes from behind the door. He's not speaking to Changmin, is not accepting negotiations. This means we need to increase pressure on his warehouses at the port. Those products that are sold under the Singa brand. Let there be a delay there, for a week. The tax authorities should suddenly show interest in these containers. Silence. He listens. It doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. What's important is that he understands that every attempt he makes to get closer to my boundaries will cost him money. Big money. Another pause. Seokwan's voice lowers, becoming dangerous and quiet. If his people show up on my street again, we'll stop playing with his property. We'll go after the people, get this across to him, by any means necessary. Amina freezes, rag in hand. The floor gives way beneath her feet. All the separate pieces. Seokwan's coldness, his authority, the forbidden rooms, his people, quiet and dangerous like himself, now come together to form one clear, terrifying picture. He's not just strict or secretive. He's the same as Kim Jae-dok, only perhaps stronger and colder. He talks about property damage, pressure, and threats as matter-of-factly as she talks about grocery shopping. Shock paralyzes her. She squats, pressed against the cabinet, unable to move. She hears him hang up, hears his footsteps in the office. She crawls back to the kitchen on shaky legs. Her world, which had gained some stability in recent days, is crumbling. She trusted her life and the life of a mafia boss's daughter. Amina spends the rest of the day in a daze. She mechanically prepares dinner, barely noticing Abby. That evening, after putting her daughter to bed, she can't take it anymore. She goes into the kitchen. Saquon is sitting there, staring into space, his thoughts clearly far away. She sits down opposite him. Her hands rest on the table, clenched into fists to keep them from shaking. "I heard your conversation today," she says bluntly, without preamble. Her voice sounds hoarse. Seokwan slowly turns his gaze to her. There's no surprise or anger in his eyes, only anticipation. He knew this could happen. "What conversation exactly?" he asks evenly. "About the warehouses. About the pressure. About what you'll do to his people if they come here." She pauses, gulping. You're just like him. Like Kim Jae-dok." Seokwan doesn't argue. He looks at her. "Yes," he says simply. "In a sense. Only I don't hunt women and children. My war is with others like me. But the methods, yes. Sometimes the methods overlap." His confession, so calm and direct, hits her with renewed force. Why did you hide us?" Seokwan leans back in his chair. "I already told you. Duty. And strategy. Kim Jae-dok crossed my line when he sent his man to look at my house. This is my business now. You have become part of it. But you're right. You must know who you've entrusted your safety to. Now you know." He waits for her reaction. Panic, horror, a demand to leave immediately despite the danger. Amina sits motionless. Images of the last few days flash through her mind. His silent protections, the dogs released into the night, Abby's Paducah lesson, his cold fury in his conversation with Chong Min, protecting them, and his cruelty on the phone today. Both sides are part of the same whole. "Kim Jae-dok," she begins slowly, "promised me paradise, a beautiful life, and then he decided to take my child away. You never promised me anything good. You only gave me a roof over my head and rules. You said he wouldn't come back, and he never did." She looks up at him. There's no longer panic in them, only a heavy, hard-won understanding. "I don't trust your world, your methods, but I've seen your actions. You said no to him for me. You're protecting Abby. Yes, you're a dangerous man, but you're also dangerous to him, and he's only dangerous to us." She takes a deep breath. "I choose to stay. I trust you not because you're a good person, but because you're stronger than him, and because your word to me is the only sure thing in my life so far. I trust you more than my pursuers." Seokwan listens without interrupting. Something akin to respect flickers in his eyes when she finishes. He nods once. "Okay. Then, starting tomorrow, everything changes. You're no longer just a guest. You're a party to this conflict. Are you ready for that?" Chang Min arrives in the morning. He brings news, his face dark as a thundercloud. He ignores Amina, but she's no longer holed up in her room. She stands in the kitchen doorway and listens. "Kim Jae-dok hasn't backed down," Chang Min reports to Seokwan. "After our nighttime visit, he's become more active. He's contacting our counterparties at the port. He's spreading rumors. He says you're hiding his property, a woman who stole his money and valuables." Seokwan chuckles. "Predictable." "That's not all." Chang Min casts a quick, pointed glance at Amina. He's turned to his main partner, Kang Hyuk, Nianin, for support. He's framing the situation as a personal insult, as if you deliberately took his property to humiliate him. He's asking for help to restore justice and repel your illegal expansion. Now Seokwan tenses. This is new information. Has Kang Hyuk agreed? Not yet, but he's considering it. This is his opportunity to strike you under a noble pretext. If he enters the game openly, Chang Min doesn't finish. The consequences are clear. This won't be a simple skirmish. It will be a war on two fronts. Seokwan turns to Amina. "See? This isn't just your problem anymore. He's using you as a pretext to start a major war. Your presence here has become a spark. It needs to be extinguished quickly and decisively." Amina understands. She is no longer just the reason for his personal debt. She is a casus belli, the reason for the war between the factions. Her safety is now inextricably linked to the safety of the entire Seokwan case. Their interests have finally aligned. After Jong Min leaves, Seokwan calls Amina into his office. For the first time, on the desk lies a city map and several photographs. A photo of Kim Jae-dok, a stocky man with a smug expression. Photos of his home, his office, his favorite restaurant. "Tell me everything you know about his habits," Seokwan says. "Not as a boss, as a person. When is he alone? What is he afraid of?" What does he like? Where are his weak spots? Unguarded by bodyguards. Amina sits up. She feels a strange surge of strength. Finally, she can do something. Not just run, but act. He hates disorder, she says. Everything has to be perfect. He's terrified of scandals, public scrutiny. It's bad for his image. He's vain. He loves to be praised for his nobility. Every Wednesday night, he dines alone in his study upstairs. He sends all the servants away. He says he needs to think, but I've seen him watching old movies at that time. Sentimental melodramas. He's ashamed of it. She dispenses the information in chunks, precisely and calmly. Seokwon listens, occasionally making notes. Okay, he says when she finishes. He wants a war under a noble flag? We won't give it to him. We won't strike at his actions. We'll strike at his vanity, at his image. We'll show his people, his partners, and especially Kang Hyuk, his true colors. Not a noble businessman, but a pathetic man who preys on women and loses his mind and money because of it. He lays out a plan. This isn't an attack. This is an exposure. He needs to obtain evidence of his true hunt for Amina, his threats. He needs to ensure this evidence becomes public in the right circles at the right moment, so that Kang Hyuk will turn against him as a problematic ally. To do that, Seokwon says, looking at Amina, we need to coax him into telling us something. Record him. And for that, you might have to be available. Safely, remotely. Are you ready? Amina thinks about his fear of scandal, about his vanity. She nods. Yes. I'm ready. Amina spends the next 2 days not cleaning. She studies the maps Seokwon gives her. She memorizes the patrol schedules of his men around the safe houses. She learns how to use a simple voice recorder and a hidden button camera. Seokwon explains the gist of it to her. They'll create a situation where Kim Jae-dok will be convinced he's found her and will try to threaten her, or conversely, rescue her. And at that moment, he'll say everything he needs to. Amina offers her own adjustments. He won't believe it if I just call. He'll think it's a trap. But if he gets evidence from someone else, for example, a photo of me in a supposedly vulnerable spot with a phone number just for him to contact, he'll bite. He likes to feel clever, having found something others don't see. Seokwon considers her idea and nods approvingly. Good. That's clever. He instructs his technicians to create a photograph, Amina, against a recognizable but neutral backdrop in the city, looking as if she's desperate and hiding. Amina also writes a short, panicked text, which she pretends to send to a trusted confidant. The text is full of fear and hints that she's afraid of him, Kim. This text will be intercepted and sent to him. She's actively involved in the planning, her eyes glowing with focused energy. She's no longer a victim. She's become an accomplice, an ally. Abby senses a change in her mother. She asks, Mom, are we at war? Amina strokes her head. We're making peace, baby. Real peace. Chang-min is, of course, displeased, but his orders are to ensure the technical side of the operation. However, he is not alone in his dissatisfaction. Seokwon's 2 key people are the Thai brothers, Yeon and Min-yeon, who are in charge of the security forces, find out that the same woman is involved in the planning and come with questions. Tae-yeon, the older, more reserved one, expresses concern politely. Boss, she's an outsider. She knows the details. If something goes wrong, or if she loses her nerve. Min-young, hot-blooded and outspoken, is more blunt. We've always done everything ourselves. Now we're supposed to adapt to some refugee? She'll screw us over. Seokwon listens to them in the same office. Amina hears muffled voices in the next room. She clasps her hands. This is her first test of strength in this new world. She's no stranger. She hears Seokwon's even voice. She's become our enemy's target, and therefore our asset. She knows the enemy better than any of you. Her plan is clever, and she's already proven herself to have strong nerves. The matter is closed. Your job is to do your part, as always, flawlessly. But the matter is not closed. Mistrust is in the air, the looks that are cast. When Aminu's brothers leave the office, they're filled with skepticism and hidden hostility. They see her as a weak link, the source of all potential problems. Chang-min, passing by, throws out a remark. I hope you understand what's at stake. If you screw this up, it won't just be you and your daughter who suffer. Good people will die, and it will be on your conscience. This pressure is heavier than any persecution. Before, the danger only came from without. Now, it's within. Amina understands that to survive and protect Abby, she must do more than just help. She must fulfill her role brilliantly. She must earn their trust, even if it's unkind and forced, or becomes so useful that they fear to cross her. She chooses the latter. Changmin watches. He can't help but notice the change in Amin. She's not hiding in the room. She's sitting at the table with Seokwon, studying the wiretap diagrams, asking precise, clear questions. She doesn't look frightened. She looks focused, like a surgeon about to operate. He also sees how Seokwon listens to her, not just tolerates her, but truly takes her comments into account. This isn't just protecting the weak, it's collaboration. And most irritatingly for Changmin, her ideas are good. The decoy photo, the story of the intercepted message, it's clever. It's more subtle than mere forceful pressure. After one of their discussions, Changmin lingers in the office when Amina leaves to check on Abby. She's not broken, he tells Seokwon, staring into space. There's no approval in his voice, but neither is there the previous sarcasm. It's a statement of fact. No, Seokwon replies curtly. And her plan makes a hint. If we want to discourage Kang Hyuk, we need to portray Kim Jae-dok as the problem, not the victim. Her method is effective. Seokwon nods, waiting for him to continue. Changmin sighs heavily as if shedding a weight. I don't trust her completely, and I never will. But I trust you, and I see the benefit in that. So I'll help. I'll handle the technical side. I'll prepare the evidence for the planting. And I'll monitor the communication channel when he calls her, so nothing goes wrong. This isn't an apology or a declaration of friendship. It's a cold, pragmatic capitulation to obvious self-interest. Seokwon accepts it for what it is. Fine, start preparing the materials. We'll drop them off tomorrow evening. As Changmin exits, he briefly encounters Amina in the hallway. She's carrying Abby, already sleepy, into the room. They look at each other. Changmin doesn't nod, doesn't smile. He simply looks at her with a professional's appraising gaze, then looks away and walks past. But that gaze no longer held the same pure hostility. There was a wary inspection. This was already a step forward. It's evening, D. Everything is ready. The fake photo of Amina at the train station and her panicked message should already be in Kim Jae-dok's hands. The phone, set to record, lies on the desk in the office. Changmin and the technician are on the line in the next room. The house is unnaturally quiet. The Tai brothers, Yeon and Min Yeon, are somewhere outside, securing the perimeter. Abby is already asleep. Amina is in the kitchen. She's preparing dinner. Rice, fish, vegetables. The same movements, the same sounds, but it all seems ritualistic. Her hands move automatically. Her gaze is focused somewhere inside, not on what she's doing. She adds salt to the soup twice and doesn't notice. Seokwon enters the kitchen. He notices her state. He sees her mindlessly stirring the soup. Everything is under control, he says quietly, not to console, but as a reminder. He already received the package. His people are checking the place in the photo. They won't find anything. Disappointment will make him call. He'll want to hear your voice, to make sure it's really you. Amina nods without looking at him. I know. I'm ready. You just have to talk. Be afraid. Be confused. Let him feel your power. The more he talks, the better. She turns off the heat under the pot. The soup can wait. She washes her hands and dries them. Her fingers are cold. What if he doesn't believe me? What if he realizes it's a trap? Then we'll have a recording of him retracting his claims. That's also an outcome. But he'll believe it. He wants to believe he's smarter. They go into the office. The phone is on the desk. It looks like an ordinary landline. Amina sits down on the chair next to her. Seokwon stands by the window, in the shade, so as not to disturb her. Silence. The clock ticks. Amina looks at the phone. She thinks about Kim Jae-dok's voice, about his heavy, commanding tone, about how this tone made her cringe inside. 15 minutes pass. Half an hour. The soup in the kitchen is getting cold. And then the phone rings. A sharp, piercing sound cuts through the silence. Amina flinches. Seokwon gives her a short, sharp nod. Go ahead. She takes a deep breath and picks up the phone. Hello, Amina asks, her voice cracked and frightened. No need to act. But the answer isn't Kim Jae-dok's. A young, mocking, unfamiliar voice speaks quickly. Ba, Amina, listen up. The boss wants to talk, but not about this game. Do you want to negotiate? In 2 hours, be alone by the fountain in the old park. Take the green scarf. If we see anyone else nearby, it's over. Your daughter isn't as far away as you think. Click, dial. Amina sits with the receiver to her ear, her face chalk white. She stares at Seokwon, her eyes wide. It wasn't him. It was someone else. They said something about Abby, about the park. It's a trap. Seokwan is already on the move. He snatches the phone from her, throws it down, steps into the hallway, and abruptly opens the door to the room where Chang-min and the technician are sitting. What was that? Where did the call come from? His voice cuts the air. The technician, pale, points a finger at the screen. They evaded our tracking. The signal was transmitted through several repeaters. A short burst. We didn't have time to locate the source. What about the wiretap? Seokwan turns to Chang-min. Chang-min rips off his headphones. It was recorded. Only what she said. Their voice, processed, altered. A simple disguise. They knew we could listen in. Seokwan returns to the office. His face is an icy mask of fury. They were ready. They were waiting for our game. And they played it first. They knew we'd try to lure him into talking. He clenches his fists. So they have inside information. Or they've guessed. It doesn't matter. Now they dictate the terms. Emina stands up. Her initial shock gives way to cold, clear panic. They said Abby. Not as far as you think. What does that mean? Just then, a dull, muffled sound comes from the street. Not loud, but very familiar to Seokwan and Chang-min. The sound of a car muffler, then a second one. Chang-min runs to the window and pulls back the blinds. Cars, two, stopping at the end of the street, not ours. The slam of the front door, which they hadn't heard over the noise in the office, now echoes loudly in the silence. Amina is the first to burst into the hallway and rush into the guest room. The door is ajar. The room is empty. The bed is rumpled. Abby's stuffed bunny is lying on the floor. Abby! Amina screams, filled with pure terror. She runs around the small room, looks in the closet, under the bed. No one. They're here! They're in the house! They've taken her! Her voice breaks into a hysterical whisper. Seokwan is already there. He pushes Amina aside with one hand, and with the other, he snatches a small lamp from the nightstand, illuminating the corner by the window. The window is closed but unlocked. Mechanical ventilation. It's open a finger's breadth. For an adult, it's nothing. For a small, skinny child, she didn't scream, Chang-min says quietly, examining the frame. So either they put her to sleep or she went on her own, thinking it was a game. On her own, Amina clutches at this thought like a straw. She could have been scared by the noise, tried to hide, or found me. But Seokwan shakes his head. His face has become stony, his eyes blazing with a cold fire. He's no longer thinking about the plan, about Kang Hyuk, about the war. He's thinking about the 5-year-old girl learning to play baduk, and about the fact that she's no longer in his home, in his area of responsibility. They didn't take her across the street under our noses, he says, his voice low and dangerous. They took her from her room and took her somewhere inside the perimeter. Here, on my property. Seokwan steps out into the hallway. He's not running. He's walking with a quick, steady stride. Chang-min tries to stop him. Seokwan! This is clearly a provocation. They're trying to lure you out. There could be snipers outside, an ambush. They took the child from under my nose, Chang-min. Seokwan snaps without turning around. They've crossed all the red lines. This is personal now. He walks toward that same forbidden room at the end of the hallway. He throws the door open. A minute later, he emerges. He's now wearing a light protective vest over his clothes. In his hand, he's not holding a firearm, but a heavy, police-style baton with a weighted end. He doesn't look like a boss giving orders. He looks like a soldier about to storm the building. He turns to Amina, who stands there, her fists pressed to her mouth, trembling. Where could she be if she were hiding? Not in the house. Where in the yard? Where's her secret place? The question, thrown abruptly, brings Amina out of her stupor. A secret place. Abby said something. About a garden. She liked to sit under the big bush by the far wall. Where the roots are, she said that was her little home. Seokwan nods. He leaves through the side door into the garden. Chang-min, cursing under his breath, grabs his gun and follows him. Amina runs after him. The night is dark. The garden is lit only by the dim light from the house's windows. Seokwan moves silently, like a shadow, toward the far corner. He doesn't call out Abby's name. He simply walks. And there, under a sprawling bush, near an old utility well covered with a heavy concrete slab, he sees movement. Not a child's. An adult silhouette, crouched, trying to pick something up. A second one stands guard nearby. Seokwan doesn't stop. He doesn't give Chang-min an order. He simply accelerates. His baton whistles through the air and lands with a resounding thud on the knee of the lookout. He falls with a cry. The other man turns, but Seokwan is already there. A short, hard blow with the handle to the solar plexus. and the man doubles over with a wheezing gasp. Only now does Seokwon see that the second man was holding Abby. She's hanging from his arm like a rag doll, her eyes closed. The metal sign falls out of her pocket and bounces off with a clang. Seokwon catches Abby before she hits the ground. He holds her close, checking her breathing. She's breathing evenly. There's a small bruise on her temple. She's been drugged. Amina rushes to them, sobbing, snatches her daughter from his arms, hugs her and holds her close, mumbling incoherent words. Changmin is already holding two of the captors. He's pulled off their masks. Their faces are unfamiliar. Seokwon stands over them. He looks not at them, but at Abby in her mother's arms. Then he slowly turns his head toward the captives. His face in the darkness seems carved from stone. "Tell Kim Jae-dok," he says in a quiet, icy voice that can be heard even above Amina's sobs. He just signed his own death warrant. The game is over. 3 days pass. 3 of Kim Jae-dok's men, detained that night. The third was found hiding by the fence, relayed more than just Seokwon's words to their boss through Chongmin. They handed him a folder, the very one containing evidence of his hunt for Amina, complete with photographs of his men arrested at the Mafia boss's house, with a clear message: if he doesn't retreat immediately and unconditionally, these materials will go not only to Kang Hyuk, but also to the police and the newspapers. Kim Jae-dok retreated. The scandal and loss of face were more terrifying to him than any violent confrontation. Kang Hyuk, having received a copy, publicly distanced himself from him, calling his actions unheard-of recklessness. The threat has passed. Amina is sitting in the kitchen. Abby, already awake and almost recovered from the light anesthesia, is drawing at the table. She's drawing 3 people, a large one, a medium one, and a small one, and a dog nearby. Seokwon enters. He looks tired but calm. He places a small envelope and a key on the table. "These are documents for a new apartment in another city, far away from here, and some money to get you started. Everything is clear, untraceable. You can leave tomorrow and start a new life. A real one." Amina looks from the envelope to him, then at Abby, at her drawing. "What if we don't want to leave?" she asks quietly. Seokwon looks at her, raising an eyebrow slightly. "Then you will stay here, but not as guests, and not as petitioners." He pauses. "You've shown you can think, act, see weaknesses. I need someone with that kind of mind. For the legitimate business I'm starting, management, logistics, personnel, there's work. A house, this one or another, a safe one, will be yours. Abby will be protected, always, but this will be your choice, your path, not a forced flight." He speaks of trust, of place, of belonging, but not out of pity, out of respect. Amina looks at her daughter, at the house that, in a week, has become more than a refuge, at the man in front of her who risked everything not out of duty, but because it was right. "We're staying," she says, and for the first time in a long time, she genuinely smiles. "On new terms." Seokwon nods. He picks up the cup Abby just placed on the table. She poured him tea like an adult. He takes a small sip. "Okay, then we start work tomorrow."